Hi, this is the Harvest Moon series. If you've played it before, you've probably played Back to Nature because it was one of the first ones that came out, and pretty much every other Harvest Moon game after that was based off of this game. I started playing this whenever I was really young, like 7 years old, I think. So, I mean, it must have been like right after it came out. I saw this friend that we had, a family friend playing it, and I just sat there and watched it the whole time that he was playing. I was super just enamored with whatever he was doing, whether it was going to collect things, farming, talking to the people, and then I found out you could get married and stuff. I just thought it was really cool and really interesting. And I thought the character looked cool. I also used to wear a backwards hat, but we won't talk about that. But I decided a long time ago, whenever I was first thinking about doing YouTube and doing anything with video games, that I want to play Harvest Moon and the Story of Seasons games on this channel. That's going to happen, no matter what. So I decided that I was going to start a series where we cover our favorite characters from the games that we played growing up. And one of the games that I played growing up is Harvest Moon. And there's so many games, there's so many years of content from them. I mean, they started in 1996 through like Game Boy and different Nintendo systems, and eventually just kept going on to different consoles. So they've got PlayStation, pretty much everything but Xbox. So, and PC, I guess they don't actually, well, never mind, forget I said that. There's a lot of games. I mean, they're going on 26 years now. So that's a long time. So anyway, I wanted to start off with my favorite character from the first game and the first time that I ever ran into Harvest Moon. It is Miss Elli, our favorite nurse from the Mineral Clinic. So, and she might be known to some others in a different way, and we'll get into that, but she was the first bachelorette that I married because, of course, you have to play as a boy and you had to marry a girl because of the time period. We'll talk about that later. So, we're going to start off the series with Elli, and I'm going to cover others. So, if you have any particular character that you're really interested in seeing this done with, then please leave a comment and I'll focus on that character next. So thanks, hope you enjoy. For the first featured character, I'm going to talk about Elli. I chose Elli because she has a special place in my heart. She was the first bachelorette I married when I started my journey with Harvest Moon, Back to Nature. Back in ye old days. She's in 10 different games, so we're going to go through each one. Elli is a cute brunette girl with brown eyes and is consistently portrayed wearing her iconic blue, fluffy dress with a white apron and bow tie. She is featured in multiple games and, depending on the game, will have a different occupation and slightly different personality. She varies between working at a bakery, clinic, and town hall. For instance, in Harvest Moon 64, released on Nintendo 64, if that wasn't obvious, in Japan and the US in 1999, Elli manages the Flower Bud Bakery. The bakery was started by her grandmother, Ellen, and late grandfather, whom she claims was a famous fisherman. Thus, in addition to baking and eating sweets, Elli loves fishing and can be found doing so in the mountains on her own or with Jeff. Her ill grandmother is her only family member, and so Elli cherishes her relationship with Ellen and takes care of her when she isn't working. The player can trigger the event of Ellen's death if she is sitting motionless outside in her rocking chair. This event will cause Elli to fall into a depression, and so it is best to avoid it if possible. Harvest Moon Back to Nature was released in Japan in 1999 and then later in the US and Europe. Elli, as well as many of the characters from Harvest Moon 64, returned, although many changes were made to the characters' occupations and personalities. Elli goes from being the manager of a bakery to the midwife at the Mineral Town Clinic. In this version, Ellen was also a midwife in her heyday, so the pattern of her following in her grandmother's footsteps continues. Elli is very curious about medicine and helping however she can. She is sort of a workaholic and is always there, except for on Wednesdays when she spends the day with Ellen, her grandmother, and her little brother Stu. Their parents died long ago, and so she helps raise her little brother. She perhaps spends so much time at the clinic because she has a crush on her boss, the doctor. Early on in the game, the player can access cutscenes that make this apparent. This becomes the canon version of Elli for the rest of the games. Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town was the first Harvest Moon game released on Game Boy Advance in Japan and the US in 2003, and later in Europe and Australia. Elli returns as the canon version from Back to Nature in most of the subsequent games. She is a nurse/midwife who takes care of her little brother Stu and often cares for her grandmother Ellen. She is also pretty loyal to the doctor and her job in the clinic. The game is very similar to Harvest Moon Back to Nature and is set in Mineral Town. The story is slightly different, but the characters and locations are mostly the same. She is a marriage candidate for the main character, and your rival is still the doctor. Harvest Moon More Friends of Mineral Town is the, quote, girl version, unquote, of the Game Boy Advance game, also released in Japan in 2003 and then in 2005 in the US. In addition to the base 5 bachelors, there are also 3 more special bachelors for your character to marry. Since you are female in this version and it was the early 2000s and outdated, you can only marry the male characters. Thus, Elli is the same character in the game, but you cannot marry her. Instead, she becomes your rival for the doctor and will marry him if your character does not. Harvest Moon Boy and Girl was the first Harvest Moon game released for PSP. It is another in the long line of games that mimicked Back to Nature and were remastered for different consoles. Depending on your character's gender, Elli is a marriage candidate or your rival. Harvest Moon DS was the first in the line of Harvest Moon DS games, and Harvest Moon DS Cute is the, yet again, quote, girl version, unquote, that was released later. The games are actually set in Forget-Me-Not Valley 100 years after the story from Harvest Moon A Wonderful Life. The characters are descendants of the original characters, even though they have the same appearances and names as the originals, ? Which is unnecessary, but okay. Since Elli is from Mineral Town, she is not a bachelorette that you can see every day. In fact, in order to even get Elli in the game, you have to connect the games to Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town or Harvest Moon More Friends of Mineral Town. Elli and the doctor visit Forget-Me-Not Valley on Wednesday mornings to study medicine at the clinic. If you marry Elli or any other Mineral Town bachelorette, the game ends and credits roll. Harvest Moon Tree of Tranquility was the first Harvest Moon game released on the Wii. Sadly, Elli is not a marriage candidate in this game. She also plays a new role as a character who came to Waffle Island from Flowerbud Village to train with Yolanda, the local chef at the Sunday Inn. But seeing that she was needed at the town hall, she works there with Gil instead. Elli can also be found working at a stall during the fall and winter flea market selling baked goods. It is clear that this version of her character is an ode to the original. Oddly enough, she can also be seen on the weather station on TV. She's also the featured weather woman on Animal Parade's weather station. It's always good to see Elli, even if you can't interact with her. Elli makes an appearance in Harvest Moon My Little Shop, a WiiWare game, in which you play as a child who is visiting their grandparents in Clovertown and end up running their shop. Elli is a potential customer who will visit your shop. She likes milk products and will likely purchase ice cream from you. Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town is a remaster of the original Friends of Mineral Town game for the Nintendo Switch. Elli makes a return with a new look that doesn't wander too far from the original character, but her name is now Elli with a Y, and she got an updated hairstyle featuring darker hair than usual. Elli is the canon version from Back to Nature, but in this game, I think she seems a little more stern than in the original games. She is a kind person at the root of her character, and is still loyal to the doctor. She scolds her little brother named You in this version instead of Stu, perhaps even more so. Elli is a beloved character who can be found in many Harvest Moon and now Story of Seasons games. She is kind, caring, and responsible. All in all, Elli is one of our favorites, and we hope to see her in future games. Follow for more in this series and give it a like if you liked it. Please leave a comment below if you want to comment on your favorite things about Elli.